I'm still a small channel. It would really help me out if you hit the like button and subscribe and smash them hard! If you're like me, you want to get straight to the video. Let's get to the workbench and get strings on that guitar. So you've got a Floyd Rose guitar. We're going to put strings on the Ibanez here today. First thing I want to do is loosen up the locking nut. I want to take the pressure off the strings, and that's a floating bridge, so you need to put something under that to hold the bridge still, and that's just a piece of metal with duct tape. Push down on your tremolo arms a little bit, put it under there, keeps the pressure off of the strings so you can loosen them up. So after you've got something under the bridge, you got the strings loose, I go ahead and cut them in the middle. And the reason why I do, to avoid scratches, you got a lot more pulling out at the headstock area and not just a little hard to deal with piece that's real sharp. Then you can throw them away at that point on both sides after you take them out. So get your wrench, take all your saddles loose, couple turns. Now when you turn this, if they don't come loose, you may have to find something to prime a little. That is a stuck saddle. And the reason why it's easier to me than a Les Paul is because I just get to loosen these and pull these out rather than the bridge falling off. There are some newer bridges that lock and don't fall off and scratch your body up on fixed bridge guitars. I know Tone Pros makes a locking one. Let me know in the magical mystery box below if there's another. Just roll these up, throw them away while they're in long pieces, because if you leave a small piece in the floor, you're not going to be happy. At least I know I have every piece, and it's not going to stab into my foot like some dull needle. And that's why I like to keep them, just in two long sections that I can roll up and make sure that they're in the trash. And the other advantage I think I already mentioned was when you're pulling these through, you don't have some little sharp pieces that are going to scratch up your headstock. And that's really not fun either. So we'll get all these pulled out and move on from here. I don't really tie these or do a luthier's knot, which I'll show you later. And the reason is it's a locking nut. It's so much faster. Back in the day, the 80s, I used to tie them and all of that. And it's really not needed on these locking nuts. And I will show you a luthier's knot, which is, I've used it in pro situations all my life. And that's what you're going to want to use on a fixed bridge, so you know that it's going to stay in tune. That could get embarrassing. So a little bit of Dunlop on a Q-tip to get the little bitty dust that sticks all around in between your bridge, on the pickup rings, and on the little saddle screws, little saddle bolts, I guess they're metric. And that's what I'm doing now, is I'm just cleaning around those, getting all that dust that's stuck on there, because it's almost impossible to get off while the strings are on it. And it works great. And if you have an older bridge that has a little bit of rust, you can put a really light gun type lubricant oil on it, but to stop the rust only. I would never do that unless I had one that I just wanted to take care of like that, because everything sticks to oil. So that magnetized dust that gets stuck all around your pickup rings, this also works great. I just spray a little bit of Dunlop 65 and just wipe it off. Makes all the difference in the world. Next, we'll get some polish. Make sure you have a clean polish cloth. I even keep them in sealed baggies so dust doesn't get on them. If you have a high luster finish on your guitar, you can get swirl marks and little scratches on the finish just from dust being on your cloth. I'll do the back of the guitar after I've got the strings on it. I'll do this whole guitar again. I'm just knocking off most of it right now. Because after I turn it upside down, which I'm going to wait until the strings are on it so the bridge doesn't move and everything's stable, but it's going to get lint or something on the front again. I'll end up doing it again. So this is just quick cleaning in between. This is also the time you may want to put lemon oil, clean up your fretboard, salt and sweat. Some people sweat more than others. I really don't. I can tell when somebody picks up my guitar because it'll feel damp to me and like it's squeaking when I'm trying to play it. But that's what destroys your chrome, your gold plating, and everything else. So get those finger oils off of there. So when you're putting the strings on and you're starting to put pressure on them, tuning them up, start with your fattest strings first. You don't want to try and use that high E string to pull that bridge up. You know, that's a lot of pressure to put on it. You can snap your string. So just start working from the heavy side to the lighter as you're putting pressure, and it'll start lifting up off of that metal piece under the bridge that's holding the spring pressure. Okay, so we're grabbing our strings. I use Diodario. Let me know in the magical mystery box down below what you prefer. These are 9 through 42s. That's what I run, or I use on most all my guitars except for Les Pauls, which they're so easy to play. I'll usually put 9.5 to 44 on those. These strings are color coded, so they're easy to spot on a guitar. The ball end of the strings, the color codes listed on the pack. Pretty simple. They wind them up together in pairs, so it's pretty easy to figure out how they go on just by using a little chart. And with a little practice with these Diodarios, you'll get used to the colors and not have to read it. So we'll get them opened up. They pair up the green and the black, which is your G and D together, and it's easy to tell the difference because one of them has round or windings around it, and the other one's just a steel string. So they pair up the gold and the red, which is the E and the A string together. Easy to tell the thickness difference. So we're going to go ahead and cut these off a couple inches up. This is where you have to make sure they're in the very center of the saddle. Make sure they're pushed down till they stop moving gently, and then tighten them up just till your tool starts to give a little bit. They're slightly cheap wrenches, and that helps me because see right there where it tried to twist a little, that's where I stop. It's better to have one pop out. You can just put it back in than mess something up or strip a thread. But an example of one that is not in the center, I'll show you right here. Do you see how this one is touching the metal on the right side? That will cause a vibration, and it sounds like a fret, where that one's in the middle. That one's correct. So again, you see the wrench starting to turn and put a little bit of pressure on it, but it's not really trying to turn the screw or the bolt. That's where you want it. Again, don't damage something. If it pops out, it's no big deal. You can just stick it back in there and tighten it up. And here's where I really appreciate the Floyd Roses as well. To get them stage ready, you pretty much just have to put them through the locking nut. Just stick them through the peg head and start tuning them up and lock it down. Something to look out for, these little nuts that hold these tuners. Every guitar I've ever purchased, they've been some amount of loose, but maybe 2 guitars. The Roman guitar out of Las Vegas, and also you want to check your strap locks. If they'll turn, then they're loose, and that could get really embarrassing on stage. I'm used to doing this guitar facing the other way, but to get it in the camera view, I'm going to show you this direction. So we're just going to put this through, and then we're going to bring it back around the back side of the peg and under the string. I'm putting it under there, and then I'll pull back on both of them against each other, and the string that I'm holding on your right, that one where I just pulled the pressure against, is actually holding the string. That's a luthier knot that you want to use on a fixed bridge guitar. I'll do that on several of these so you can catch on to how to do it. And I also prefer to hold up higher on the guitar and keep it down against the headstock so it has a nice winding. If you're wondering what's inside of my little drill, it's that paper foil that comes out of like a cigarette pack, because those little drills are great, but they will start taking the finish off your keys. So with those little cheap plastic peg winders you get for free thrown in with a guitar kit. Okay, I got a little bit of pressure on this one, and we'll move on to the next one. So as soon as I start feeling some pressure on it, under this finger, see where it's smashing my finger against the headstock? I know I've got a little bit of tension, and it's just enough. So right here, when you're going through the locking nut, is where you'll stab and scratch your guitar, because all you have is a little sharp point pointed down right at the finish on your headstock. Luckily, I have the truss rod cover kind of covering the string coming down at an angle in case something like that happens. So something to think about after you've got your luthier knot tied on a fixed bridge guitar, put some extra wraps on the high E and the B string at minimum. Makes it a little more stable, and I'll show you how to kind of stretch your strings out. Let me know in the magical mystery box below if you want me to do that video on setting up your fixed bridge guitar, getting it stage ready, more or less. I don't see anybody doing those, but 1 or 2 wraps is not cool. So let's set up your fine tuners so you can get the most out of them tuning up and down. So go ahead and take one of them all the way down. It won't turn anymore, but don't force it. Then tune the next one next to it all the way up. So you're going to set all the rest of them in the middle of where those 2 are. And you're just going to feel the difference as you run your finger across them when you get them all even. Then you can go back and set those first two to match the other four. And that way you'll have plenty of tuning room up and down after you've locked down your bridge. So newer folks, including myself, when you first get a Floyd Rose, they can get very frustrating because you got to tune them like 4 or 5 times because each string affects the other one. When you tighten one up, it pulls the other ones down. But that's where this little piece of metal in the bridge helps. That way you can just tune it to standard and then put your tremolo arm in, raise it up, remove that, and it'll go a little bit sharper than standard. And then you can kind of fine tune it. But it's all kind of kept right within its parameters or what it's used to setting, so it's a lot faster to get tuned back. When you get really used to doing this, you'll actually start to learn to tune the string you're working on a little sharp because you know the one below it's going to pull it down a little. And you can get really good at anticipating that. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, this video is all about the Floyd Rose is easier than fixed bridge guitars. Well, I still find that threading strings up through the body of guitars, stopping bridges from falling off, putting one string on first to keep the whole bridge from falling off, there's a lot of things that take up time. I still find these are easier, but I've been doing them a long time. Don't forget to start with your fat strings when you're tuning, because you don't want that little bitty E string pulling all this pressure of those springs on that bridge. I'm going to tell you that this is a pro tip because I've watched a lot of folks on the internet changing strings, and they're great guys, great channels, but after they put the strings on, they cut the end off, to make it look pretty before they're done with the other ones. Now, guitars, in my experience, they will draw blood if they can. I wait till I'm all the way done with all the strings on and then cut the strings excess off. It's really not a good feeling getting stabbed with a dull needle. So when you get done with this video, you'll be able to string up your guitar and get it ready to go and play and be confident. But also, we're taking into account that your guitar has already been set up for this gauge of strings, or the gauge you're putting on, the same gauge. If not, we need to take into account your guitar needs to be set up. And you can let me know in the magical mystery box below if you want me to show you how to set up for a different set of strings. I'll be glad to make that video, but that's definitely another video. Those are what you use to adjust your string tension when you change a set of strings. In my experience, 1 1/4 turns brings you down about a half a step if you need to tune your guitar down. But they're all a little different depending on your spring tension and how they're set up and what strings you have. They're not that bad, but it has to be done, or your bridge won't be level against your body. And that changes your action and everything else. String buzz, you name it. So I tuned the whole guitar just a little bit flat because I'm getting ready to take out the little holder I have right there, and that will let a little pressure off of it, making it go a little bit sharper, and I'm ready for my final tuning and lockdown. I want to reiterate that without that little bar underneath there, the whole bridge can slip backwards in those little knives that are on the pivot point. It'll be a mess. The springs will pull the bridge down into the body, and whatever you do, don't try and use the strings to lift it back up. I have other ways I can do it. I'll put pieces of cork underneath there. I literally have them cut at different thicknesses for guitars, but it makes it really harder to get your little tool in there to adjust. And with that, I hope it goes great for you. Happy rock and rollin'. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm a small channel. And just think how proud your wife's going to be of all the money you've saved.